All right. Good morning, everyone. People we can see and people we cannot, but who are with us. This is a meeting of the Water Resources Commission. It is Tuesday, December 15th. I apologize that we're starting a little bit late, almost 10:15. We had some unexpected technical difficulties, so thank you for your patience. So we have one agenda item this morning, and I'm going to ask Tom and Breeze to present for the staff. But before I do any of the commissioners have any questions, comments before we get started?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Do we have Eric on? Nirvana, can you see whether Commissioner Quemps is on?
Yes, I can see he's on.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. I couldn't see you on the screen, though. I wanted to make sure we hadn't lost you.
Yeah, I'm on, and for the Commission's awareness, and the staff are aware that my employer submitted a letter of comment to this issue, so I think it'd be appropriate for me to recuse myself from the vote this morning, but I'll be listening in and participating on the discussion.
All right. Thank you, Eric.
So you will still need 4 votes to be able to pass.
Yes. We need 4 votes to act today. Yes.
Chair Reeves, just as an administrative matter, I wonder if it would be useful to do a bit of a roll call to identify the folks who are not only the commissioners who are in attendance, but the members of the public that are here today.
Sure. I'll start. Neg Reeves, Water Resources Commissioner. What each of the commissioners want to go? Maybe how do we want to do this, Tom?
Maybe if you call on them, just it'll be a little more efficient.
Okay. Okay. Call on everybody that I can see on the screen.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Kahara.
Commissioner Kahara, East Side at large.
Thank you. Commissioner Korn.
Bruce Korn, representing Eastern Oregon.
Thank you. Commissioner Mall.
Mall, West Central.
Commissioner Baumgartner.
Bob Baumgartner, Northwest Region. Good morning, everybody.
Mr. Byler, Director Byler.
Tom Byler, Water Resources Department staff.
Renee Moulin.
Good morning, Renee Moulin, Oregon Department of Justice.
Doug Woodcock.
Doug Woodcock with the department.
Nirvana Cook.
Nirvana Cook, Assistant to Director Tom Byler with the department.
Thank you. Chris Cowett.
Good morning. North Central Region Manager Chris Coates with the department.
Ivan Gall.
Morning, Chair Reeves. Ivan Gall with the department.
Thank you. Deidre.
Jared Trudulli, Executive Support Specialist in the Director's Office.
And Genoa Ingram.
Genoa Ingram, Oregon Groundwater Association.
Thank you. Mary Ann Cooper.
Good morning. Mary Ann Cooper. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy for the Oregon Farm Bureau. We are the state's largest general agricultural organization.
Thank you. Brian Pozowitz.
Hi, everybody. Brian Pozowitz, Water Watch of Oregon, and one of the petitioners.
Thank you. Okay, I might have reached the limits of my screen. Do we have anybody else, Nirvana, that we haven't introduced or who hasn't introduced themselves?
We have Ken Yates, I believe, needs to introduce himself.
Ken Yates, Oregon Water Resources Congress Policy Coordinator.
Thank you.
Double check the list. How about Christine Ball-Blakely?
Good morning. Christine Ball-Blakely, Staff Attorney at the Animal Legal Defense Fund.
And then
thank you.
Christina Stella.
Hi, Christina Stella, Managing Attorney at the Animal Legal Defense Fund, and also here on behalf of the petitioner, Stand Up to Factory Farm.
Okay, and I'll just go down the list briefly. I believe that is our list.
All right then, thank you. Thanks to all of you. And I will turn the mic over to Breeze Potter and Tom Byler for staff presentation.
Pardon me one moment. We do have someone, I see someone calling in with the last four digits of 8877.
Could the person with that number unmute for a minute and introduce yourself?
Yes, it's Dave Filippi with Stoll Reeves, just participating as a member of the public. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, Nirvana, is that everyone that you can see?
That is everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here we go.
All right. Can everyone see the slides okay?
Yes.
Sorry, I can only see, like, Chair Reeves is the only little video on the slide there for me.
I didn't know you could see me, or I would have said something, or I would have done a thumbs up. I can only see your PowerPoint.
Okay,
sorry.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Breeze Potter. I work as a water policy analyst with the department. Today we're going to be discussing the petition for rule amendment or rule making that the Commission received in October. In this presentation, Director Byler and myself will provide background and recommend a course of action on the petition. And then the Commission will need to decide whether to deny the petition in writing or accept it and direct the department to initiate rulemaking. So on October 5th, Stand Up to Factory Farms, which is a coalition of organizations, submitted a petition for the Commission to conduct rulemaking. The petitioners request the Commission to prohibit new or expanded exempt uses for stock watering in the ordinance critical groundwater areas through amendment by rule of the Commission's order dated April 2nd, 1976. So a little bit of background and history in this area. In 1976, in response to rapidly declining groundwater levels in the Columbia River basalt group and alluvial aquifers, the director of the department wrote an order establishing the Ordnance Basin Critical Groundwater Area. The area is roughly centered on the former Umatilla Ordnance Depot, which is located east of the Umatilla River near Hermiston and south of the Columbia River. The Ordnance Critical Groundwater Area was established after public notification and subsequent public hearings. The resulting findings, conclusions, and order describe the location and characteristics of the Ordnance Critical Groundwater Area and close the alluvial and basalt aquifers to further permitted appropriation. Although the director closed the area to further permitted appropriations, the director left exempt uses intact. And the Commission subsequently adopted a rule, which is OAR 690-507-0070, subsection 3A, in the Columbia-Umatilla Plateau Subbasin Basin Rules, which gives effect to the director's order. So this is that rule. I won't read through the whole thing for you. I'll just leave the slide up for a second so you can take a look at it yourself. And I would like to mention at this point, if you have any questions while I'm presenting on any of these slides, please feel free to interrupt me. Okay, so the petitioner's request is that effective date of petition, the Ordnance Gravel Critical Groundwater Area and the Ordnance Basalt Critical Groundwater Area are closed to further appropriation of groundwater in excess of 5,000 gallons per day under the stock watering exemption in ORS 537-545 subsection 1A. And that would be an amendment of the order, that 1976 order. So the governing law and process surrounding petitions for rulemaking, the relevant law is ORS 183390, which allows a person to petition an agency to adopt, amend, or repeal a rule. And the Attorney General has adopted a uniform rule, which is OER 137-001-0070, which governs the submission, consideration, and disposition of petitions for rulemaking. So according to this rule, the petition must contain certain information, and if the petition is proposing rule adoption, it must include the rule language in full, and if the petition is proposing rule amendment, it must set out the rule in full with all proposed additions and deletions clearly indicated. If a petition requests amendment or repeal of a rule, the Commission must invite public comment before taking action to deny the petition. And when reviewing the petition, the Commission must consider a number of factors. There's 6 factors which are outlined in ORS 183390. Director Byler will go into greater detail in those in a future slide, but just to go over the basics, those 6 factors are the continued need for the rule, the nature of complaints or comments received concerning the rule from the public, the complexity of the rule, the extent to which the rule overlaps, duplicates, or conflicts with other state rules or federal regulations, and to the extent feasible with local government regulations, the degree to which technology, economic conditions, or other factors have changed in the subject area affected by the rule, and the statutory citation or legal basis for the rule. And then within 90 days of receipt of a petition for rule amendment or rulemaking, the Commission must either vote to deny the petition in writing or initiate rulemaking proceedings. So the Department invited public comment on the petition, including whether options exist for achieving the rule's substantive goals in a way that reduces the negative economic impact on businesses. The Department provided 2 opportunities for written public comment, the first starting October 22nd and running through November 12th, the second starting November 20th and running through December 1st. The Department received 1,088 comments as of 5 p.m. on December 1st. Of those, 1,084 comments were in support of the petition, and 4 were in opposition to the petition. Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay, comments in support. So this is just a sample of some of the comments in support. If you would like to see the full comments, you can access our file pickup site. There's also a sample of comments which is included as attachment 3. Those are the comments in support. And a sample of the comments, well, all the comments in opposition are included in attachment 4 if you guys would like to refer to your staff report. So the Department received 1,084 comments in support of the petition, which included 3 comments from organizations or coalitions, including Water Watch of Oregon, the petitioners, and Friends of Family Farmers, and a comment from the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. In general, comments in support of the petition identify concerns over the sustainability of use of exempt groundwater for stock watering purposes at confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs. The Department received 4 comments in opposition to the petition. There was a regional letter submitted by a group of counties, ports, cities, farms, and organizations. There was also separate letters from Morrow County and City of Irrigun, and a self-identified agriculture group coalition comprised of the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, the Oregon Farm Bureau Federation, and the Oregon Dairy Farmers Association. Again, this slide does not reflect all of the comments or concerns in opposition. It's just a sampling. In general, comments in opposition identified concerns related to land use coordination, legal authority, and targeting a sector of the agricultural industry. And with that, I will hand it off to Tom.
All right, thank you, Breeze. As Breeze mentioned, there are 6 factors under the statutory authority underlying and guiding the petitions for to request rulemaking. And these 6 factors are lined out in the staff report. I don't plan to step through all of them in great detail, but they are lined out here. You know, we've lined out for you today and very directly in the staff report the nature of the complaints and comments you have available to you. Every comment that we've received by the deadline of December 1st. So those are available. Breeze just summarized the kind of the key points associated with the complaints, or the comments. In terms of the next item, the extent that the rule overlaps, duplicates, or conflicts with other state, federal, local regulations, I'll probably talk about that a little bit in the next slide, where we want to recognize that while the Water Resources Department has direct authority over the allocation and distribution of the uses of water. This is an issue that has connections to other state and local programs, notably local land use and the need for us to coordinate around those issues depending on the actions that are in front of us. But also, of course, the confined animal feeding operation permitting laws, which are also at play here with respect to the potential operations that are of concern to the petitioners. The next item is around complexity of the rule, and I will spend more time on this. This is something that I think is an important consideration for the Commission, and as you'll hear from staff, we think that there is greater complexity around this issue than maybe recognized at first glance when reading through the petition. The degree that technology and economic conditions or other factors have changed in the subject area is actually a very interesting factor for us to consider in the light of the history around the critical area in this basin. You'll recall that the order that established the ordinance critical groundwater area was put into place, I believe, in 1976. And, that was a ways back. And in the order, it basically prohibited new permits from occurring and did not prohibit exempt uses. And I think one of the questions that I think is worth acknowledging as part of the consideration is that, we may have seen a change in conditions where confined animal feeding operations are at a scale today that perhaps they weren't, that no one really contemplated back in 1976. So that's a factor for us to be mindful of as we think about this issue. We've set out the legal basis for the rule and the petitioner's request in the staff report, and Breeze has mentioned that as well. And the continued need for the rule, I will talk about in the next slide. But again, we touched on all these issues in the staff report, and so they are there for your reference. If we can go to the next slide, please, Breeze. So in terms of the need, that was a real central focus for staff in considering its recommendations to the Commission on this petition. And one thing that I'll say right at the outset is that new large uses of groundwater in the ordinance critical groundwater area, is not a good idea, and it's not something that we want to promote, and certainly does not lead to sustainable management of the resource to support the users of that aquifer system. So I think that we all, from a staff standpoint, we want to make that point loud and clear. But that's an important consideration, and when we dive a little bit deeper into this issue, it's our assessment that there is minimal risk of new significant uses of groundwater that are pending in this area. And moreover, that we don't feel that there's an immediate risk of use of the groundwater exemption for stock watering. And I'll put a finer point on that issue from the standpoint that I've been in direct communication, and the staff have been in communication with a couple of proposed operations for capital operations in this area. And in both instances, I've made clear to them that introducing new uses of groundwater in this area is not a good idea, and that we would not be supportive of that. But perhaps more importantly, in those conversations, we've been given clear indications that that's not their intent. Their intent is to find other sources of water for their long-term water supply. And that's encouraging. That's the kind of cooperative feedback and interaction that we like to see from potential operators in the area. We are, for example, just to kind of underscore that level of cooperation, One of the operators is, owns the former Lost Valley Farm operation that was fairly notorious in recent years, and they have been very transparent in terms of their approach. They have recognized and signaled to me in our conversations that they understand that these critical areas are not can't sustain large new uses, and have been working towards a water supply plan associated with their potential CAFO operation that would involve water, would be essentially neutral to the aquifer resource there, from the standpoint that they're looking at bringing water in from the Port of Morrow, or potentially transferring existing groundwater uses that were permitted prior to the critical groundwater area being established. In my view, those are neutral on the resource and acceptable from the standpoint of not jeopardizing or creating new additional strains on these critical areas. So that was a factor that we wanted to really understand, and I wanted the Commission to understand, is that we don't see an imminent threat of new uses on that system. I also wanted to, in kind of in the balance of considerations, mention to you that we think that this path forward to create some restrictions in this area is a little bit more complicated than was articulated in the petition for rulemaking. The petition for rulemaking suggests that a basin program amendment would suffice to address the issues, and I don't think that actually is the case. I think that while they could prohibit new uses of the exemption for stock watering, it would not address existing uses. And we think in this particular case, with the former Lost Valley Farm operation, that there are existing uses there. And so to really address their issue, it would require more effort and more mechanisms that would have to be brought into play. For example, potentially introducing a contested case proceeding under the critical groundwater area statutes would be one mechanism by which the Department and Commission could address that issue. So that is important consideration for us, again, from a staffing standpoint, because we think this issue will require a significant amount of work for us to address. We question whether there's the immediate need, and that we juxtapose with the reality that we have as an agency, that we have limited capacity to address issues, and that we have staff committed to a number of priority areas around groundwater and rulemaking that are already in play. As the staff report articulates, we have long-standing commitments in the Harney Basin, in the Walla Walla Basin. We have groundwater issues that take up a lot of our time and attention in the Klamath Basin. We know that we're going to be focusing more on the groundwater mitigation program in the Deschutes Basin. These are all important commitments. It's not to suggest that the issues in the Umatilla Basin are not important. They are, but I want to make sure that we're thinking through this issue in terms of, what's the urgency of need versus the workload commitments that we have. Because if we were to shift onto this issue immediately, it would have impacts on some of these other efforts in terms of the groundwater staff and the rulemaking and policy staff that we would need to bring to bear to address the issues that are raised by the petition. Breeze, if we can move to the next slide, please. The last comments I want to make, just to kind of frame staff's recommendations, is that it's not clear that the proposed rulemaking accomplishes the petitioner's objectives. I mentioned that in the previous slide from the standpoint that I'll repeat here in just a minute, but I also want to note that we did have some questions about the form of the petition itself. whereby they seem to be requesting a rulemaking to amend an order. Those are different tools that are used for management purposes. It's not clear to us that that would be the exact right mechanism by which to affect the change the petitioners are seeking. But we don't want to belabor that issue. We just wanted to note that that was an area of some question for us. But regardless of that issue, we recognize that, as I mentioned in the previous slide, that the mechanism by which is being requested under this petition wouldn't appear to cover all of the ground we think that they're interested in, and it does suggest that there would be a lot more work associated with this to really meet the intentions of the petitioners. In that, just to be clear, the rulemaking that's being requested would affect prospectively new uses. As I noted, we believe there are already existing uses on at least on the one property that was formerly the Lost Valley Farm, and that rulemaking would not be effective in restricting those existing uses, and therefore additional efforts would have to be brought to bear to achieve that aim, most likely initiating a contested case to restrict existing uses. All of that said, again, I want to repeat that we understand the importance of this area. We certainly think that it's important for the Commission to be considering groundwater use in this area, given the fact that we've had long-standing critical areas. From a staff standpoint, we think that if we are to take on those considerations, that we would recommend a more collaborative and perhaps a kind of a broader lens view where we would engage with the local community, with interests around these issues, with the Umatilla tribes, with the local governments in the area, with the irrigated agriculture community, to really talk about the long-term trajectory of these groundwater systems, whether we have the right tools available to us to address concerns that folks have, and to really reflect on what does it mean to manage these aquifer systems sustainably. These are important conversations that would not be addressed by the rulemaking that the petitioners are recommending, and that I would recommend that we think about in the context of our staff capacity and our existing priorities and commitments. And that's reflected in the recommendations that we put forward. Thanks, Breeze. The recommendations that you have in front of you are to, one, deny the petition in writing. A second alternative, and a variation on that theme, would be to deny the petition in writing and direct the department staff to consider this issue in future priority-setting discussions. And third, your alternative is to initiate rulemaking proceedings. Staff recommends alternative 2, and we want to be clear that when we consider this issue, that it is a multifaceted issue. It's not just an issue around stock watering and the exempt use, but I think there are some broader issues that are worthy of contemplation for the Commission. So I think I'll pause there and see if Commissioners have any questions.
Tom, can you somehow, is that a shared screen that we're looking at here? Because all I can see is your slide. I can't really see where the commissioners are.
We go back off of the PowerPoint and onto the...
Yeah, please. There we go. Thank you. Thank you for that, both of you. That was well done and helpful. Do we have any commissioners with questions, comments?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Bruce, please.
I just want to commend the staff for this informative presentations that you've given today. And to me, as I've looked through the materials and studied what our options are, it appears to me that petitioners perhaps are focused on a single entity, where us as a commission, our focus is more on basin, statewide type issues, and that I do not support their petition in the narrowness of the scope of what they're going after, that perhaps it appears that the capital issue is something that they are opposed to, and I think our scope is much broader. There's many things that in the years I've been on the commission that we've been focused on all the groundwater issues in different basins throughout the state, and Umatilla being one of them. And for these issues to be addressed has to be much broader and much more inclusive of all stakeholders in these issues. And so for those reasons, I'm opposed to the petition that's been presented to us today, and I'd like to see us reject that and look in the future more broadly of working with the tribes and industry and agriculture and all the various stakeholders in coming to consensus and conclusion and solutions that can be beneficial to all, rather than going after one particular entity or one particular industry in a punitive way that it appears to me that this would be. So I would like to see us continue our work with the staff we have and with our partners that we've been successful in finding solutions in other issues similar to these. And I know there's ongoing things that are going on in the Umatilla Basin now. There's several entities that are working towards positive solutions that will then benefit to all the community, rather than to be a punishment or restrictive to one particular aspect of this area. So for those reasons, I'm opposed to the petition, and I appreciate the information we've been given, and I think we have the ability to make a decision that will be good for the whole of the community, rather than a special interest that is trying to maybe achieve some other goals that are not beneficial to the good of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Do other commissioners have questions or comments? Kathy, yes. It looks like you are unmuted. There you go.
That's what I get for pressing the wrong button. I kind of echo Bruce's thoughts. I understand, and yes, I can see the potential need for looking at the stock water exemption, but I don't think this is the venue or the vehicle to do that. My thoughts are, again, to deny the petition, but to, again, direct the staff to consider on a more statewide basis what we need to do with the stock watering exemption. I like dairy, I like milk as much as anybody, but I also like clean water and, decent ground. The need for coordinating all the state agencies involved in this can't be accomplished through this petition rulemaking. And I think that's where another area that we definitely need to be focused on. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Commissioner Baumgartner, you are unmuted. Did you want to make some comments?
Thank you, Chair Reeves. Yes, I do, very quickly. I want to commend the staff on their presentation, their summary of this issue, which I think is quite complex, and I agree it's more complex than just implied by the request for the petition. I want to thank Bruce and Kathy for their eloquence, and I won't repeat that other than to note, I think I agree that the issues raised I find a lot of empathy for them, but I do also agree that these issues need to be evaluated and addressed as part of a broader review of what the department's priorities are. And so the only caveat I have is that I want to make sure that we do not forget these issues, or that if the options or the proposals to have some collaborative strategies do not seem to be working, that we are reminded of these issues. And so my only request is that sometime following what I would presume the legislative session is over, when we have a better understanding of the state's priority, how all these priorities work, that when you brief us, Tom, on what the agency's priorities are, we explicitly are reminded of the issues that are raised here and how they fit into our priorities.
Thank you, Bob.
That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Other commissioners? No other comments? Yeah, Eric, Commissioner Quince, I know that you're recusing, and I don't know whether you had any comments you wanted to make. I just can't see you, so I don't want to exclude you by mistake.
Thank you, Chair Reeves. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I want to second a lot of what Commissioner Baumgartner said. I think this is a well-intended effort, but I think it's a bit maybe misguided, using the wrong approach, and we do need to look at a larger solution set to the problem. I think it does a good job of calling attention to an area that has historically been a groundwater management problem, obviously, and it's something that we ought not to forget about. And as Commissioner Baumgartner said, we'll need to return to the topic when we have a better understanding of our resources and can fit it into our priorities for future work. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mall, did you have any comments?
Yeah, my only thought was on the form of the recommended action alternative 2. It's an open-ended time frame, and I feel like, given the history of the groundwater decline in the basin, it's recognized in all of the progressive work going on now with the Columbia River and others, but I wonder if there's any way we could make this petition with some collective prioritization that was a little more time certain than just in the future, whether or not it is something that we could call out explicitly for 2021 as some incentives-based or other gathering approach, or if that is not within the spirit of the staff recommendation.
Tom, did you want to respond to that?
Commissioner Mall.
Joe?
Commissioner Mall, Chair Reeves, thank you, Commissioner Mall, for that question. You know, what I would recommend is that, and this was alluded to by earlier commissioner comment, that we've got the long session coming up, which is a big time sink for a lot of folks, but it's also an important kind of setting of the table for us when the new biennium starts in July. We'll know what kind of resources we have or don't have at that point. We may have new guidance from the legislature in terms of what our priorities might be. We may have more priorities than we even are aware of right now, as well as the governor. And so taking stock of that really begins in the middle of the summer. And our first opportunity to start to think about what we have and where we might go in the context of a new budget and in the context of all of the items that we have prioritized for ourselves under our strategic plan. The first opportunity, meaningful opportunity for that conversation will be our fall September-ish meeting. I can't remember if we're looking at August or September. But that's what I would recommend, where we could at least start to take this up and talk about this issue, what it means, how we might approach it, and where it might fit in our list of priorities. I think that'll be an ongoing conversation, quite frankly. I'm not sure we'll resolve that at that meeting, but that would be, in my view, the earliest opportunity for us to have some meaningful engagement at a future commission meeting.
Thank you, Tom. And I'll just add that I agree with what other commissioners have said, and I think that the staff have done a good job of laying out what the issues with the petition itself and the relief that it's asking for, and the larger question of maybe the specific relief being asked for there, we think it's not time for us to do something like that, but it certainly raises issues that are important and that we should consider going forward. And I heard a couple of different. I think I heard a suggestion that maybe that we would want to look statewide at least large CAFOs making use of a exemption, stockwater exemption. But then there's also interest in, instead of that, or maybe in addition to that, looking at groundwater issues in the Umatilla Basin in the ways that we're looking at that issue in other basins already in the state. And then the issue that we're all aware of is, we have limited resources, and where does this fit into the Commission's priorities? I mean, we have other policy priorities that we haven't been able to get to yet, and they're still in the queue. So I think it's really appropriate to fold this, whatever this is, into the policy conversation that we have. And maybe we'll be able to do that in September. I think it's hard to predict whether we'll be able to get this on a September agenda. And I'm interested in not necessarily locking that in, because I just don't know whether it's feasible. We have other aspirations as well. So I'm also in favor of denying the petition for the reasons that all of you have talked about, as the staff report identifies. But I'd like to see more of the staff kind of maybe think through further what exactly it would be that they were suggesting we follow up on. There's a lot of issues that kind of got raised by this specific petition. So, and I think if we could aim for September, that would be great. But recognizing that I don't know whether that's going to be feasible. So those are my thoughts. Do we have any other? Yes, Bruce.
Just had one comment to add that concerning Commissioner Mall's comment. To me, it speaks loudly that if and when we could expand our place-based planning into another community, that this would be a community that would fit in really well. The problem being, we all know the budget restraints of expanding that program at all right now, and that makes it kind of difficult to set a time frame we can do it. The other thing is, because of the things we're aware of, that the community has been working together with various groups to get Columbia River water and the restoration of the Umatilla and all the things that have been happening there in the past few years. A place-based planning group would really just be another partner to help in coordination of that, rather than reinvent the wheel. I mean, it's not like there's not anything going on in the basin already. Commissioner Quimps has alluded to that with his work with the tribes. That there is a lot of cooperation going on, and place-based planning might just be another tool that would help to move that along. Again, with the budget and all the issues that we're dealing with, when that can happen is really the question. And so I think that's why we really can't say it's going to happen, January 22 or whatever it might be, is because of the limits of the funding and the realities of the situation we live in now. So thank you, Chair Reeves.
Sure. Commissioner Mall? Joe?
Yeah, I appreciate that, really, especially your grounded perspective in this, Bruce. My concern, quite frankly, is with the sort of 50,000-foot view level that the Oregon 100-year water vision has. and the real on-the-ground problems that this petition, that previous legal challenges that we have dealt with, that the department constantly finds itself on its heels because of the legal, like this, a very tactical approach to forcing a policy discussion. And so I really want to encourage us as a commission to try to define that middle space. So I see, for example, if with this long session, whether it's a part of our policy option packages or what, if we could really include this, and I don't mean a CAFO, I don't think that's the issue. The issue is declining groundwater, its connections to surface water, and to elevate this as something to the legislature that says, here is where the sweet, not really sweet, the sour spot is that makes the 100-year vision, or whatever we want to call it, urgent. Not just important long term, but there are real issues on the ground now. And so I want to encourage us to take a more active, less passive. When I hear that I know there's no question, especially COVID on top of everything else, we have financial resource challenges. But if we're in a good position to elevate the issues, in this case, I think the larger issue of groundwater decline, use of exemptions, et cetera, to say these are the things where the rubber's hitting the road, and let's step back from that 50,000-foot, 100-year vision and address some of these things now, not necessarily in the way this petition is proposed. So I really would encourage us to consider amending that second option to call out third quarter 2021, or at least at a time for us to revisit the range of issues raised by this petition, for example.
Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Chair Reeves. Commissioner Mall, I just want to maybe expand on your comment a little bit, just for to kind of clarify the playing field that we have in the near term. The governor's budget, the governor's recommended budget, was just published. We have not had a chance to educate you all on that, but that kind of creates the framework within which staff can operate and communicate with the legislature. And so it is both an opportunity and can be a limiting factor in terms of the conversations that at least we can take the lead on with the legislative body. We did have an option package that we had recommended we had several associated with groundwater. One involved enhancing our ability to study aquifers and move on kind of priming the pump for basin studies by doing some preliminary work around the state. Unfortunately, that did not make the cut in the governor's budget. We also had an option package relevant to the Harney Basin that was seeking funding to help cost share and provide some staffing for some innovative work through the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program in that basin. That didn't make it into the governor's budget either. And so that doesn't mean those issues won't be brought up. There may be advocates on those types of issues, but they're not ones that I can take the lead on in the legislative context. So I just wanted to provide that context for the commission generally, but also wanted to remind you all that groundwater is a big priority for us, and has been for some time. For some of you who have been on the commission longer, you may recall some very foundational work that we did at the staff level to update and kind of provide a primer on groundwater, both in terms of the laws that we have available to us and the state of the resource. Our groundwater staff did a great job of that, and it led to some actions that we have had underway for some time now. So there's a lot going on, and I think that we are really at the beginning of the lift in some respects, even though we've been working in the Harney Basin for 4 or 5 years now, we're really getting to the creative time now where we're trying to, as the basin study gets completed, where we're going to start really working with the community on solutions. I want to make sure that we have the time and bandwidth to do that. And, in addition, we're working in the Walla Walla, and we're in the early stages there of the basin study. I want to make sure that we have the time to do that. So all that said, I'm not trying to suggest that the issue that we're talking about today is not worth talking about. I'm committed to have us talk about it, but I can't guarantee it will make the cut from a staff standpoint in the end of the day. And so I think that one of the challenges for us as an agency and for you as a policy group is for us to keep those conversations going, to make sure that we, to the best of our ability, keep the balls in the air, but that we also make smart decisions in terms of how we allocate our resources towards these issues. And I think that, I don't think this issue is going to go away if we don't pay attention to it. I think these issues will continue to percolate out there, whether it's in the Umatilla Basin or in other parts of the state. We all know that groundwater is going to continue to be a real policy pressure point for us. And so I am comfortable that we will be able to revisit this issue in 2021, but I don't know in what form and I don't know how much detail. So we will do our best to not lose track of this item. And I will note that I think there's some latitude in terms of what this issue is, and I do think that groundwater issues will continue to be part of our portfolio discussion as we talk about priorities, and we will do our best to try to bring this back in the fall for some meaningful dialogue, again, in the context of priority setting for the agency.
That's really helpful, Tom. Thanks. I'm very sorry to hear that the draft budget didn't include either of those POPs. Okay. That's all helpful perspective, and I hope that my questioning comments don't in any way question the commitments and the creativity that staff have brought to this over the years. I just think we're going to continue to get pounded by tactical approaches to people that are rightly concerned about different things. I guess, Chair Reeves, what it does make me wonder is if, in the same vein as we've discussed convening remotely or in person when we can with the OEB board, if there's not a similar, I think there'd be great value in co-convening somehow with the ODA Commission, and just talking about these intersections of agency purview and the issues on the ground, because the less balkanized it can be, I think the more productive it will be.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have a conversation about having some cross-disciplinary board meetings. I think the thinking has been that there might be in-person meetings in our future at some point, which might be more productive, but I don't know that we've advanced the ball on that specifically. Tom, have you had any chance to talk with other directors about this, or the question of cross-disciplinary meetings?
Not recently, and I'll be honest, I think 2020 has just been a distraction from some of those types of useful modes of communication and improving collaboration between agencies. I would note that the whole saga that underlies the petitioner's request, I think has some silver lining associated with it from the standpoint of collaboration, a better coordination among state agencies. We've seen recent improvements of the CAFO process, which I think provides a greater synchronicity and connection to the water supply issues that we're responsible for, and I think puts the state in a much better position to make its decisions in the full context of the different resource needs and the different programs and agencies that are involved that have some role or some implication in the capital permitting process. There's now a two-phase capital process, which I think really does a much better job of accounting for the need to have for a permittee to have their water supply plans and actions lined up before they bring animals onto their site. So I do feel like we're in the constant learning mode, and there are opportunities there. I think from a policy standpoint, I've always been a big fan of having boards and commissions meet, but it's not just it has not been part of our thought process because we've been so distracted with the extraordinary year that we've had this year among the different natural resources agencies.
I wonder if, in terms of, I think I'm hearing agreement among the commissioners on a general approach here and of some sort of revisit of the issues that are raised by this petition, of which there are many. And I'm wondering if what we could do, rather than a fixed deadline by which we revisit this, if we could, in a motion, direct the staff to update the commission on its work on the issues related to this or raised by this petition, which kind of recognizes, I think, that the staff's thinking might get further along on this, but it's not an expectation that you're going to deliver a proposal for action necessarily by the fall, because I have a hard time picturing how you would get that done between now with the budget you have. Well, we just heard from you, Tom, about the success of the 2 groundwater pops in the governor's recommended, and so I think what I mean is a means of keeping this on the front burner. Well, maybe the front burner, keeping this in our package of things that we're talking about without necessarily committing the staff to delivering a particular product. Because what we want to talk about is how to fit this, what this is, and how to fit it into our priorities, I think, the agency's priorities. Maybe we can get further along on that by a September or November meeting. So, it's a thought. Any further discussion? Questions? If not, are we ready for a motion? No motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Bruce.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept alternative 2, deny the petition in writing, and direct department staff to consider this issue in future priority setting discussions.
Do we have a
I second the motion.
All right. Any discussion of that proposed motion?
Nope.
No? All right. Are we ready to vote? All right. Let's do this by roll call. I'm just going to go in the order I can see you on the screen. Commissioner Kihara?
I vote in favor of the motion.
All right. Let me just clarify. That's a good point. It's been moved and seconded that the commission deny the petition in writing and direct department staff to consider this issue in future priority setting discussions. Commissioner Kihara votes yes. Commissioner Corrin?
Yes.
Commissioner Mall?
Yes.
Commissioner Baumgartner?
Yes.
Commissioner Reeves votes yes. Commissioner Quemps has recused himself, and the motion carries. So, I believe with that, unless any commissioners have any further comments. No comments? All right. Yes, Jeff.
I'll just encourage all of both the petitioners and the opponents on the call today to please reach out in the coming weeks and months and years that it's going to take to resolve some of this, because there's an element of guesswork here on the scale of interest, whether this is something related to CAFOs, whether this is bigger, and the creativity needed to address some of these things is really going to take a great deal of openness and trust, and encourage that in everyone that's interested in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. I second that. Any other comments? All right. I think we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience today.
Oh, no. Well done, Nirvana. You got it done.
Oh, thank you guys so much. It's a pleasure to see all of you.
Yeah.
You all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.